trying to find what I always knew was mine. Take away the memories that I wanna leave behind. I'm trying to find what I always knew was mine. Take away the memories that I wanna leave behind. The fire is inside me, the fire is inside me, the fire is inside me.
This is the way we crash the party.
The fire is inside.
G'day ladies and gents, Cubic Meter here. This is the most powerful mob farm in Minecraft. Well, at least the concept of it. To my amazement, the concept of the end of life mob farm was introduced almost 4 years ago by the members of Hammer SMP. In fact, I was even a member at the time, working on projects such as the Villager Trading Hall, which saw the first implementation of void trading. Minecraft's most powerful mob farm starts with the founding principles of any mob farm. When mobs are spawned in a controlled space, then they're killed, and their loot is extracted. To maximize your mob spawning rates, you want your spawning spaces to be as low as possible in your world. This is because when the game goes to spawn a mob, it will first go to the highest block in that vertical column, and then it will pick a random position below the highest block to perform the spawning attempt. And if that block just happens to not be spawnable, then the spawning attempt fails, and you effectively have less spawning spaces in your farm. For example, we have exactly the same spawning spaces except at different heights, and you can clearly see that the spawning spaces that are lower are getting more spawning attempts. However, if I go ahead and introduce a glass ceiling above the lowest spaces, we've effectively introduced a whole bunch of invalid spawning spaces in this air gap, and what we observe is the spawning rates for these spawning spaces reduce drastically, specifically because of these redundant blocks. So removing blocks above the farm is imperative. Another factor that affects spawning is the light level, for which there are two different types of light. One of which is the block light, which is dependent on source blocks such as torches. The other value is the skylight, which depends on access to the sky. During the day, mobs will only spawn if both the block light level is 0 and the skylight level is less than 7. But during the night, the only requirement is for the block light to be 0. But ideally, you don't want your mob farm to be time dependent, and so it is best to make both the block light and the skylight 0. And finally, there is a fundamental limit to the amount of mobs that can spawn around any given player, which is known as the mob cap. You can see this number up in the top left of my screen. So right now it's reading 70 out of 70. So if I change the time to night like so, we've just added all of these extra spawning spaces. But because the mob cap is being filled by all of these mobs in the center, no additional mobs are spawning. But if I go ahead and butcher all of these mobs to free up the mob cap, all of a sudden, mobs are able to spawn again. This is why mob farms will use all sorts of mechanisms to clear the spawning spaces as quickly as possible so that new mobs can spawn, be killed, and have their items harvested. With all of this in mind, what would be the ultimate mob farm? Well, here it is. All the mobs spawn, instantly die, then all the items are instantly teleported into this hopper counter. Wait, what's that? You can't obtain command blocks in survival? What do you mean? You totally can. just watch these videos by JKM. But in all seriousness, we clearly only care about mechanics that are, at the very least, accessible to the player in survival. And even if you can obtain and place down command blocks in survival, there's no way that you can actually use them. So what's the next best thing? Well, that would be sliced nether portals at the bottom of the world with the light levels suppressed so that they're forced to be 0. This works because the moment that the mobs change dimension from the overworld to the nether, they are removed from the overworld's mob cap, allowing more mobs to spawn in the overworld side. This results in this crazy system of mobs spawning, then instantly getting teleported into the nether, where they can be concentrated into these continuous streams of mobs. So there we have it, the means to obtain the fastest spawning rates possible with the least amount of moving parts. And so what we see is Minecraft's fastest mob farm painted all over YouTube. However, there is a subtle issue with pretty much every implementation of this design. You see, the waterfall of mobs coming out of this farm makes it look pretty damn impressive for videos. But the detail that almost everybody misses is that we don't care about the mobs. What we care about for any farm is the items. And if you don't even collect the items, then what's even the point of this being a farm? The generally accepted standard for mob farm design is that an increase in functional complexity leads to a more sophisticated design which can spawn mobs and eliminate those mobs faster, leading to more items. However, the end-of-life mob farm completely breaks this paradigm, utilizing the absolute minimal amount of functional complexity to obtain the most spawning rates possible. This has led to a lot of controversy, with mob farm designers boycotting the end of life as overpowered and not innovative or interesting. Which is fair enough, given you can make stupidly simple portal spam farms which outcompete some of the most functionally complex mob farm designs. But when pushed to the game's limits, the end of life presents a completely different challenge. Minecraft's most powerful mob farm is not a challenge in mob farm design. It is a challenge in storage tech to make an item sorter that can handle the insane throughput of items without lagging the game. And as you can probably tell from my computer slowly choking to death, this is not a problem that can simply be solved by placing down more hoppers. This is a problem that's going to need a lot of complex innovation to solve. The primary issue to solve with any mob farm is the amount of processing a computer needs to simulate all the farm's systems. The more lag a farm causes, the slower it runs. If we use the carpet tool /log TPS, we can see a number displayed at the top called MSPT, which is the milliseconds per tick. This number is one of the most important resources for any farm. As the lag experienced by the game increases, so does the MSPT. And if the MSPT goes over 50, the TPS will start to decrease. And what we will see is the game will start to lag. By decreasing the speed of Minecraft simulation, you will effectively nerf the rates of your own farm. And the main culprits for lag in any mob farm is the mobs as well as the items. So we want to make sure that we minimize the amount of MSPT the farm produces wherever possible. So what are some strategies we can implement to reduce the lag that our farm produces? Well, one of the main reasons that entities lag is that they do a lot of complex things, like pathfinding and moving around. All these tasks consume computing power, making our farm less efficient. But what if we could somehow simply get rid of these tasks and make the mobs as stupid and simple as possible? Well, it turns out there is a way to do exactly that. Let's go ahead and log mob caps. If you look at the top left, you can see that out of 70, that there is the hostile mob cap. If I go ahead and spawn 10,000 creepers, you'll notice the game starts to lag very quickly. However, if I use Tweakeroo to toggle off entity ticking, like so, all of a sudden, our game is perfectly fine and happy with 10,000 creepers standing right in front of us. By disabling entity ticking, we have effectively completely lobotomized the creepers, meaning they aren't running any AI tasks. This has resulted in a significant decrease in the amount of lag. But obviously, when we build a farm in survival, we're not going to have access to toggles like disable entity ticking. And so, we're going to need to use another method in order to prevent the entities from ticking. This command block is set up to spawn 10,000 creepers, however, those creepers are going to be spawned very far away from us. If I use Sensei's chunk debug tool, we can visualize the area being loaded by my player as this square. The chunk where our creepers will be spawned will be this chunk right here. And as you can see, the status of the chunk is lazy. If I go ahead and spawn the 10,000 creepers, there we go, we can see the 10,000 creepers are now present in the hostile mob cap. However, without any entity ticking, due to them being in lazy chunks, they're causing barely any lag. This would be a good time to introduce the objects known as the can spawn, the can despawn, and the despawn spheres. If we go ahead and enable this in the mini HUD toggles, our first sphere represents the distance at which mobs will not spawn around the player. One can only imagine what the game would be like without it.
Step off! Step out! Shit! They jumping me! They jumping me!
Our next object is the can despawn sphere. So outside the can spawn sphere, mobs can start spawning naturally. Outside the can despawn sphere, the mobs can also despawn randomly. As you can see, we have a creeper that's been spawned outside the can despawn sphere, and a creeper that has been spawned between the two spheres. If we go ahead and stand in the middle of the spheres, then have a look at our creepers. There we go, the creeper outside the can despawn sphere has despawned randomly after some time. Then finally, we straight up have the despawn sphere. As you can probably guess from the name of it, mobs that are outside the despawn sphere will despawn instantaneously. However, that process of despawning will only happen if the entity is itself being processed. This means that the 10,000 creepers that we spawn in the lazy chunks outside of our render distance, even though they are outside the despawn sphere, they are also outside the entity processing area of our render distance. So this means that the instant that I cross this chunk border and bring those creepers into entity processing chunks, because they are outside my despawn sphere, they will despawn immediately. This means using lazy chunks, we can have our 10,000 creepers in stasis far away from the player. And to make things even more interesting, if I go ahead and disable the chunk loading for my player, we can fly over to the creepers and have a look at them without them being processed. If I then get Steve to press a button spawning some TNT, something very interesting will happen. Even though our creepers are in stasis outside of entity processing chunks, they can still be interacted with by entities in the adjacent chunks. This means that not only can we decrease lag by lazy loading the mobs, we can also kill the mobs and extract their loot, all without the entities needing to be processed. Alright, so here is a model of our farm. This command block will spawn creepers continuously in this portal where they get instantly whisked away into the nether, where we have Steve positioned in a chunk which places the exit portal at exactly the right distance to put it within lazy chunks. So let's go ahead and go into spectator. So we start generating the chunks. Let's tell Alex to flip the lever on, and we start spawning our creepers. Oh, something's not right here. Let's have a look at the chunk debug, and we can see that the chunk that the portal is in has been updated to entity ticking. So here we can see there's the lazy chunks from Steve's render distance, but the portal is actually creating a chunk loading ticket, which is entity processing in a 3x3 area around the portal. It seems we might have an issue. If merely the process of entities going through a portal loads the chunks on the other side, then it's effectively impossible to get our mobs into lazy chunks. Well, that was the theory until Punchster discovered a technique known as the corner portal. You see, Punchster is very inquisitive, and he asked the question, if a portal loads chunks, and a portal can also be an object that exists in multiple chunks simultaneously, then what dictates the chunk that the chunk loading ticket is sent to? Well, you would assume that it is the chunk that the entity appears within that receives the chunk loading ticket. However, as I just demonstrated, the creeper appeared in this chunk, however, the chunk loading ticket was sent to this chunk. An interesting property of nether portals is that if I enter one side of the portal in the overworld, I go to the corresponding side in the nether. Let's say we take this concept to the extreme and make an extremely long nether portal. Now when I enter this side, I end up all the way over here on the nether side. And if I go on the opposite side in the overworld, I end up all the way on the other end of the portal in the nether. Here is a simple demonstration of the corner portal technique. I've got Alex, which hits the button on the left, spawning a creeper in the portal on the left. Then if I get Steve to press the button, the creeper spawns on the right. Over on the nether side, if I get Steve to spawn his creeper, the chunk loading ticket is sent to this chunk, however the creeper appears in this chunk which is adjacent to it. However, watch what happens when I get Alex to spawn her creeper. Would you look at that? The chunk loading ticket was sent here, but our creeper has appeared all the way over here, which is actually a lazy chunk. This means that as long as mobs only go through one side of the portal in the overworld, they will be within lazy chunks the moment that they teleport into the nether. So now the question is how to design the spawning spaces to force the mobs into one side of the portal. In fact, if we are being critical for a moment, this donut shape for the spawning spaces is actually the worst possible configuration for the farm. In order to have portals with light level 0 where mobs can spawn, you need to suppress light updates with a big laggy machine. And to slice the portals to maximize the spawning rates, you'll have to apply update suppression. Light suppression and update suppression are both rather complicated techniques which I will not explain because these videos do it much better. But in general, update suppression has a systematic approach which uses a big machine to get it done quickly. This machine will let you update suppression in lines like a printer. So ideally you want the symmetry of your spawning spaces to match the symmetry of the machine. Instead of doing this stupid donut shape for the spawning spaces, literally just make the farm a big rectangle. For example, if we took all the valid spawning spaces from the donut shape and then compressed it into the shape of a rectangle, the resulting spawning spaces would look something like this. Not only is this significantly more compact, but it's also much easier to build with an update suppressor. We've also got these 2 wide portals that are going to be needed for the corner portal technique. However, the problem is our mobs are spawning in both sides of the portal, which means they are not going to be going to the same position of the portal every single time. So how do we control which side of the portal the mob spawns in? Well, light suppression allows us to keep the light level at 0 even when we light the portals. However, the neat thing about light suppression is that the spaces don't have to be light level 0. They can be any light level that we want. So if prior to light suppressing we place down a light emitting block, such as these mushrooms which sets the light level to exactly 1, then we start light suppressing and remove the mushrooms, we get left with our spawning spaces of light level 0 and light level 1. So if we make sure that we're light suppressing, then we put back the portals, our mobs are only ever able to spawn where the light level is 0. With that problem solved, let's go on to figure out the layout of the farm. If we go ahead and jump into the nether side of the farm, I've laid out this nice to scale model of the farm in the nether. Mobs which spawn within this purple shaded region will link to this portal block in the corner of a chunk. The chunk loading ticket is then sent to this chunk, which is depicted in this chunk loading grid. And by ensuring that the mobs can only spawn in one side of the portal in the overworld, they'll be transported to the corresponding side of the portal in the nether. Theoretically, the spawning spaces for our farm could occupy 1, 2, 3, 4 of these chunks. However, in practice, this doesn't work with the corner portal technique, because if any mob spawns within this area, it will link to a portal block in this chunk, which will send the chunk loading ticket to this chunk, which will mean our mobs will no longer be lazy loaded. This restricts our spawning area to these 2 chunks worth in the nether, which corresponds to a 128 by 256 area in the overworld. However, considering only roughly a third of these spaces are actually spawnable, we have a total of 10,954 spawning spaces. With a single player, note that the mob cap is constantly reading 70 out of 70. This means the farm is being mob cap limited. We go ahead and run the command lifetime tracking, like so. We can find that it spawns roughly 1 million creepers per hour and 1 million skeletons per hour. It's important to note that we actually disable spiders from spawning using these walls, and the reason for that is that spiders have a much larger hitbox than other mobs. Spiders will also sometimes spawn with a skeleton jockey, which prevents them from going through the portal but still contributes to the mob cap. The same is technically true for a baby zombie riding a chicken. However, these can be automatically dealt with using these turtle leg ports, which attract the zombie towards them and simply dispose of them in the void. The larger hitbox on spiders causes them to appear in a completely different location in our collection portal. This causes a lot of issues for item collections, so we just disable spider spawning entirely. The only mobs we really care about are the skeletons and the creepers. To try and increase the rates of our farm, we can instead use 2 players to load the entire area, which effectively doubles the mob cap. However, since the Cave-in Cliffs update, mob caps expand dynamically depending on the degree of separation between the players' spawning areas. For example, each one of these players gets their own mob cap of 70. However, for this region in the middle of the farm, where their spawning areas overlap, the total mob cap between them decreases slightly, which means instead of getting the full 140, we only get a mob cap of about 115. If we enable mob spawning again with our expanded mob cap, we are still being mob cap limited, but only just barely. If we look at the lifetime tracker, we're now spawning about 1.6 million creepers and skeletons per hour. That is a 66% increase to our spawning rates, which is pretty worthwhile. So let's see what happens if we step it up even further with 4 players all loading our farm in this intersecting pattern. What we start to see is a pattern of diminishing returns as we add more players to the mob cap, as we've only just barely managed to reach the 2-player mob cap if they were completely separate. We once again have a look at our lifetime tracker. Would you look at that? The rates for skeletons and creepers have actually decreased with 4 players over 2 players. This means that the optimal configuration for our mob farm is when it's loaded by only 2 players in the overworld. Now we have the optimal rate of mobs spawning and then instantly getting teleported to our laser chunks in the nether, which looks like this if we have our player Alex instantly despawning them when they arrive. However, if we go ahead and remove Alex, things start to get very spicy very quickly. In fact, this is the part of the video where I must advise genuine caution, as tens of thousands of mobs accumulating in lazy chunks can very quickly cause the game to run out of memory and crash. So for our next step, what we need to do is kill the mobs as they come through the portal and somehow collect all of the items. We will of course be making use of TNT looting, which is a concept which we have covered extensively on the channel, where an arrow shot by the player is dropped into a stasis chamber, like so. And now, if I get Steve to place down some TNT, we use the arrow to ignite the TNT, which results in the explosion from the TNT being attributed to my player. In light of the potential issues of running this mob farm, I've gone ahead and implemented some extremely strict mechanisms to make sure that it is as safe as possible. As you can see, we have this smaller portal up here, which our mobs will be teleported into. And this just happens to be right inside of the anti-processing chunks, meaning our entities will instantly despawn provided they're linking to this portal. However, if I go ahead and start up the TNT looting system, we make absolutely sure that the portal is only ever ignited when we can guarantee the mobs are killed. However, we appear to have run into another issue. If I go ahead and kill anything that's not the player, the mobs don't appear to be disappearing. The problem is easier to illustrate if I go ahead and get Alex to enable spawning for a single tick. There we go. The mobs spawned and then were killed by the TNT. However, it turns out that the mob's death animation also counts as an entity, and as such, we actually need a method to despawn the death animation of the mobs after they are killed. Fortunately, this turns out to be as simple as pushing the death animation of the mobs out of the portal into entity processing chunks when the portal is broken, which will cause the death animations to despawn instantly. Also, you might be a bit concerned about the items and XP flying everywhere. However, I can assure you, all of this is happening in lazy chunks. So if we go ahead and unload it, and then reload all of our item entities, you'll see they are all packed together in the same spot that they were created where the mobs were killed. So this whole thing of the items flying everywhere every time the mobs die is simply just a visual glitch, and is not what is actually happening. We are at the precipice of our ultimate goal to have Minecraft's most powerful mob farm. I go ahead and give my alt account this sword with looting free, like so, and replace the arrow in the TNT looting system with one that belongs to him. We can determine the full output of this farm with looting free to be over 13 million items per hour. If we wanted to cheat the system and claim that the fact that the items existed at all is enough to claim credit for having the fastest mob farm in Minecraft, then we could call it here. But if we did that, then the only thing we are really farming is attention and clickbait. We need to devise a way to collect the items from our farm without using a command block to instantly teleport them to an unlimited speed hopper counter. Because spawning the mobs and killing them is the easy part. Now things are going to get technical. You might think that the simplest way to deal with the items is to push them out of the portal into entity processing chunks. However, the problem with this is that the items will still have random momentum from when they were dropped by the mobs. There is also a colossal amount of item entities that need to be sorted through and allocated into storage. And the longer that these item entities are in the world, the more the game is going to lag. This is actually the biggest problem with such a powerful mob farm, and that there is no sorting system that exists in Minecraft that can handle the sheer throughput of items. So why don't we just brute force it? Place down as many hoppers as you need to get each item into a box. Well, let's say we only focus on 3 item types: gunpowder, bones, and arrows. At full speed, the farm can generate up to 4 million per hour of each of these items, which means if we use double speed item filters, which have a throughput of 18,000 items per hour, we will need over 200 of these double speed filters per item. This results in this comedically large box loading array. If we get ourselves a boat, put it inside of a minecart like so, and then go ahead and align the boat, like so. We can float align the items to make sure that we move them as quickly as possible. And would you look at that? It's actually working! However, this is only 5% of the farm's capacity. Let's see what happens if instead of spawning mobs for 1 tick each cycle, we spawn them continuously. Yep, there's your problem. Even with the conveyor being as fast as humanly possible, the sheer scale of the conveyor is causing item entities to accumulate and lag out the game. Just take a look at that entity counter in the top left. We're talking almost 4,000 item entities within entity processing chunks at any given time. Unfortunately, this is just not going to cut it. This is currently Minecraft's most powerful item sorter, a stack separator designed by Rapscallion and Glotz, but it can only handle about 1/10 of our farm's output, which is insane given this thing can sort 5 whole item stacks every second. That's just over 1 million items per hour compared to the 13 million items that our farm produces. And even after receiving items from the farm for such a short amount of time, the input has already backlogged so extremely that items are lagging the game. Another issue is the sheer amount of unstackable items, such as armor and weapons, that cannot be sorted very easily. we're going to need to really think outside the box to make an item sorter that can handle the output of this farm. Let's focus on the bare elements of our problem. The mobs die and drop a fat stack of items at their feet inside lazy chunks, meaning they won't lag for as long as they remain in stasis. However, if they stick around for too long, the TNT explosion will destroy them and we will lose all our items. Something must happen to take the items we want and put them into separate containers. We are running into a problem with vertical integration where the insane output of the farm is forcing every step along the process of collecting and sorting the items to become bottlenecked. The main bottleneck is shulker boxes. To load a shulker box you need to access the faces. A hopper can load a shulker box at 9,000 items per hour, while a dropper can get twice this speed at 18,000 items per hour. A shulker box only has 6 faces, one of which is taken up by the dispenser so that we can place down the box automatically. Another is taken up by the braking mechanism, and another phase can even be taken up by the collection and full box detection. Some extremely advanced box loader designs, such as this one designed by Hamter, Floppy and Lumi, are able to combine the braking, collection and detection into a single face, freeing up another 4 faces to have full speed droppers. But even the most advanced box loaders can only load a box up to 72,000 items per hour, meaning in order to increase the box loading speed, you need to run multiple of them in parallel, which takes up space. And the more space that your box loading array occupies, the longer it takes to get the items to where they need to be. So, how can we possibly beat the shulker box loading bottleneck? Let me introduce you to the fastest box loading mechanic in Minecraft. And to think all you need to do to make this amazing machine possible is simply right click on a shulker box. That's right, the simplest solution turns out to be the least obvious one. Fundamentally, there is no restriction on how quickly a player can load a shulker box. Of course, this means that the collection is not going to be automated. However, this farm is so goddamn powerful that just by running it for a single minute, you can fill over 100 shulker boxes. Besides, the entire purpose of making a farm like this so powerful is that the player does not need to wait as long to get the items that they need. Plus, this completely eliminates our box loading bottleneck. However, just because we have the player in the loop does not mean it's all smooth sailing. To keep up with the farm, the player needs to load 2 shulker boxes every second, which is certainly not possible with a vanilla client. At the bare minimum, you're going to need item scrollers inventory management features to be able to load shulker boxes this quickly. And to obtain a level of semi-automation, we can even go as far as instant shulker box loading with Fallen's Tweakamore. But even with client-side mods to help us, if we simply throw items at the player expecting them to sort through the items, they're going to be very quickly overwhelmed. So we are still going to need some advanced storage tech to make it as easy as possible to get these items into shulker boxes. I was just scrolling through the Mobfarm project channel and got carried away scrolling all the way to the top. Just to get an idea of how long this project has been in the works, the very first messages are from individuals I've never had the opportunity of meeting. In fact, while this was happening, my YouTube channel had only just entered the scene. It's interesting to note that very early on, the item sourcing and storage was a prevalent issue. And this, my earliest contribution to the project, was still 6 months out from me actually joining the Wavetech server. And by the time that I entered the scene, there was still no clear solution to the item sorting problem. It felt like we were going in circles. From wacky ideas of hopper minecarts, pushing around item entities in lazy chunks, and of course trying to brute force things with gigantic laggy box loading arrays. It took several months of throwing ideas around until we finally settled on a very niche and interesting solution: lazy item stacking. The basic idea is that if you have 2 item entities next to each other and they can stack, then they'll merge together. So here I've created 2 redstone dust entities, and they stack together. And in fact, the order that they stack together is dependent on a lot of complicated factors. For example, if I spawn this item entity first, and then this item entity second, the item entity that will spawn first will jump across into the item entity that will spawn second. And if I spawn them the other way around, the opposite occurs. Now, consider what happens if we're on a chunk border and one of the items is in lazy chunks, but the other item is in entity processing chunks. Well, the first item to be processed will jump over into the other item stack. And so now the lazy load item stack has 2 items in it. Now you might ask yourself, how on earth does this help us? Well, from the mob farm, we have a fat stack of loot that we want to extract the items from. With this item stacking mechanic, we can use a seed item of the specific item type we want to extract, and it will stack with items of a similar type. However, the issue is that this is doing literally the opposite of what we want. We want the seed item to pull the items out of the lazy chunks. However, because it's always the first item being processed, being in entity processing chunks, it's getting pulled into the lazy chunks by the lazy loaded items. Unfortunately, that's not very helpful. However, there is a way to make sure that the entity processing stack always takes priority. So far, we've only been spawning an item entity with a single count, meaning if I summon the item entity and pick it up, you can see there is only a single item in the entity. If we go into the command block and bump up this count to 2, now we spawn an entity with 2 items in the stack. It turns out that if we can make sure that the entity processing item stack is always larger than any individual item entity from our lazy chunks, it will always stay put and extract the item that we want from the lazy chunks. This means by using a seed item of the same type, we can pick which items we want to extract from the lazy chunks. And with the ability to select a specific item and remove them from the item stack at different times, we obtain the perfect method to separate our various items, all without ever needing to disturb the fat stack of items in lazy chunks. It turns out that if you kill a whole bunch of mobs with looting free, the specific sizes of the item stacks they drop depends entirely on the loot table. So if I go ahead and start hitting this note block, we can see this hopper will pull in exactly 1 item entity's worth of items each time I pulse it. So 4 items per stack is quite common. However, it can vary all over the place. And of course, with looting free, the item stacks will tend towards 3 or 4. However, the largest item stack we should expect with looting free turns out to be 5. Which means in order to guarantee that we can pull every single item stack from our lazy chunks, our seed items will need to contain at least 6 items per item stack. All of this messing around with item entities is pretty easy to do if you have command blocks and you're in creative mode. However, of course, we need to make a machine that works in survival to do all of this automatically. The first step is to figure out the scale of this machine. We have established that we only really care about gunpowder, bones, and arrows being the most useful and the most common drops from our farm. From each skeleton, we get 0 to 5 each of arrows and bones. For each creeper, we get 0 to 5 gunpowder. A good clock speed for the TNT looting is 24 game ticks, or just over a second. This means divided by our 3 item types, we get an 8 game tick time window to extract each of our items. The seed items will start with 6 items each, meaning each seed item stack can pull up to 58 of that particular item type. 58 items extracted every 24 game ticks gives us an extraction speed of 174,000 items per hour, which means a single seed item is nowhere near enough to handle the rates of the mob farm. But if we bump it up to 24 seed items, we get a sorting speed of 4,176,000 items per hour, which is just about more than enough to handle each item type at about 4 million items per hour. That seems pretty straightforward, but unfortunately we are just kicking the can further and further down the road, because now we need to figure out a way to create 24 item stacks containing exactly 6 items each every 24 game ticks, which is one of these item stacks every single tick. Perhaps the simplest approach would be to just have a bunch of shulker boxes go into a system like this, and then the box gets unloaded into a dropper, and then we dispense 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items, which stack together in this cauldron, and then we drop the items out, and we obtain our seed item stacks. However, this device is fundamentally bottlenecked by this hopper right here, which can only extract items from this shulker box every 8 game ticks, meaning you would need 144 of these modules running in parallel to obtain our seed item stacking rate. And unfortunately, 144 of these modules all running simultaneously is simply not going to fulfill our lag requirement. What we need is a faster and more efficient method of producing the seed items, such as using hopper cart yeeting. However, the easiest implementation of this will only produce seed stacks of 5 items instead of the 6 that we need. Plus, in order to make sure that we can separate our different item types, we'll need to have every item type dedicated to a single hopper cart. And this presents the additional issue of all of the items stacking in the first slot of the hopper minecart, meaning we get a seed stack with well over 6 items, which unfortunately is not very useful to us. We can try and address this by making sure that each slot of the hopper minecart only has 6 items in it, like so. But then there's the issue of the items wanting to stack with each other, which is very difficult to mitigate due to the random momentum that the items get when they immediately come out of the hopper minecart. So if we watch these items, it will take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There we go. On the 6th tick, all of the items have stacked together into a single item stack. This gives us very little time to manage the random momentum given to the items before they stack together. To solve these issues, I instead decided to go with shulker box yeeting, as each box can hold all 24 of our seed stacks. Then all we need to do is yeet one of these boxes every 24 game ticks to obtain our seed stacking throughput. And as I've just demonstrated, this system can be made incredibly fast and efficient. Blink and you miss it. If we use tick freeze and selective rendering, we can go through the process step by step. First step is that we dispense the box and then align it with this item alignment system to make sure it has no random momentum. Then the next step is we light the shulker box on fire and nick its health just slightly with this cactus. After that, our burning shulker box flies along the ice and gets aligned using this amethyst and gets crushed between the hitboxes of these perfectly aligned boats. It is at this moment that our shulker box item dies and all of the items inside are liberated. Then, at the exact moment that the items go to stack, they come through the portal in such a way that they arrive inside of the entity processing chunks, meaning they will stack together and also pull all of the items from lazy chunks of the matching item type. And here is where we get into the very technical mechanics of item entity stacking, because it turns out that due to the alignment and positioning of our items, they will search for item entities in the adjacent chunk before searching for item entities in the same position. Meaning, as our items come through the portal, they will completely ignore one another and first retrieve the items from the lazy chunks before they stack with one another. This is purely locational, and so it took a lot of trial and error to find the perfect alignment and positioning to get it right. This results in a cyclical process that is perfectly repeatable and perfectly reliable to obtain all 24 of our seed item stacks perfectly timed so that they arrive in the nether at the exact instant that they go to stack. But once again, every solution we find introduces more problems, like how the heck are we going to make a shulker box with the items laid out like this? G'day cubic meter here. You've literally already solved this problem, you donghead. That's right, in the video Let's Build a Redstone Shop, we designed a machine that can fill each slot of a shulker box with a very specific amount of a specific item. So all we need to do is take the concept of this machine and scale it up to an industrial behemoth capable of feeding the seed stacking system for each item type. With the design for the seed stacking figured out, we can simply tile the modules for each item type, then run the cycle on a 24 game tick clock, whilst offsetting each one of our item types by exactly 8 game ticks. If we go ahead and drop down the tick rate a bit, activate our selective rendering, we can observe as the items being processed at distinct times enables us to stack separate the batches no matter how big they are, and then they drop down into this system, which launches the items back into lazy chunks but in separate cells, where the batches can then be released at specific times and sent all the way to the box loading system in large batches of a single item type. If I put myself in spectator mode, so I'm no longer loading the area, and then enable mob spawning, there we go. Our lazy loaded mobs start appearing in the portals, getting killed by the TNT, and if we get very close, we might be able to see... Ooh, no, that doesn't make things easy to see. The item interpolation is making things a bit unclear. However, as each one of our seed stacking items comes through the portal, you can see all of that item type disappearing from the item pile in lazy chunks. There we go, bones, arrows, gunpowder. Just like that. Isn't that absolutely awesome? I could watch this all day, I swear. At this reduced tick rate, you can also begin to appreciate how separating the items in time allows us to separate the items no matter how large the batches are. With a hopper counter at the box loading system, we can observe the full output of the farm to be the nominal 4 million items per hour per item type, giving us about 12 million items per hour in total, whilst remaining mostly under 50 MSPT. The performance will vary depending on the processing power of your machine, and Wavetech servers are a lot more powerful than my computer. If I disable the hopper counter, you can even see it working with the player loading the items into boxes with this comprehensive box management system to handle edge cases like boxes that were accidentally filled with mixed item types, or partially filled boxes of specific item types which get reloaded back into the box loading system to get filled when the next batch of items arrives. If we hook up a hopper counter to the box loading output, we can see nothing but purely filled shulker boxes of all of our item types streaming through at almost hopper speed. And the best part about this sorting system is that you can actually configure which items you want to extract from the farm. For example, if you only want gunpowder, you can turn off the other item types, which means we only run the seed stacking module for the gunpowder, so we only pull gunpowder out of the item stacks in the nether. Oh, and if you're wondering what this lever does, this is where things start to get a bit silly. Due to the sheer scale and efficiency of the mob farm, we actually spawn a decent amount of witches as well as zombies. And just because we can, I've included this module which produces seed stacks for redstone from our witches as well as carrots, potatoes and iron from the zombies. Which means that Minecraft's most powerful mob farm is also a pretty decent iron, carrot, potato and redstone farm. The rates for these items are peanuts compared to our big three, but hey, who can argue with free potatoes? Alright, silly item collection aside, there is actually one significant drawback to this sorting system. In order to collect each item type, you actually need a small stockpile of that same item type to run the box maker. From this bulk storage in the nether, we take a small proportion of each item type and recycle it back into the box maker to keep the feedback loop going. But when it comes to actually getting the farm started on the Wavetech SMP, we'll need to actually get these items to input initially. And unfortunately, Wavetech doesn't actually currently have enough of the resources to stock up the box makers. So what we are going to do is create a small light suppression mob farm in order to gather the resources to stock up the big light suppression mob farm. And for this, I have enlisted the help of the one and only JKM. What project have we got here, JKM?
So this is gonna be a mini EOL mob farm. So this is basically gonna be a small scale test for our procedures for light and update suppression. And also, it's a normal functional mob farm, so we're gonna get a bunch of drops to kickstart the box maker.
That's pretty nice. And so what was your original goal with this particular project?
So yeah, originally I wanted to farm just zombie villager chicken jockeys, because fun fact, you can actually turn them into villagers, so that was kind of my goal. But then you realize that we can actually use this to start the mini EOL, so yeah, that's what we're doing.
So we get a tech demonstration of light and update suppression. We get the drops for the mobs that we need for the big boy EOL. And as a cherry on the top, we also get zombie villager chicken jockeys that can be converted into villagers riding chickens.
Basically.
Sounds like a fun project.
Hell yeah.
Alright, so in preparation for doing the suppression, we've gone ahead and restarted the server, and I logged off next to the bat switch so we could start it up immediately when I logged back on. Now that we don't need to worry about bats spawning, we should be able to head over to the mini EOL and start setting up the suppression. Alright JKM, you ready to start the light suppressor?
Yeah, I am.
Nerve-wracking moment. So I can just flick this on.
Yep.
On.
Epilepsy warning.
Damn this crappy internet. Oh, there we go.
Oh, it is doing a lot of things on my end.
Yep, something's
So
definitely
much that I
happening.
am dropping frames. Why am I dropping frames?
Light updates?
I have them disabled.
I am probably going to get kicked from the server. Wait, no. We're back. I cannot use my Elytra though. Holy
24,000
crap.
game picks.
Yeah, that is accumulating quickly. Oh, and just for my audience. Right now we're seeing the light queue debug tool. So I use the command /log light queue, which is a part of, I think, TAS carpet. Yeah, TAS carpet. And it's actually telling us how far behind the light queue is compared to the game thread. So you can see the game tick counter increasing. That's essentially the amount of time we have until the light thread catches up to where we are. Does this technically make this a race condition?
Technically, though the window here is several hours.
So I guess we are the race condition.
Falling block, let's go.
But like when we start adding light updates to the queue, they will eventually get processed if we wait too long, right?
Well, yeah, that's why we first want to run the light suppressor for quite a lot of time. So the game is going to be busy processing the useless lamp updates from the light suppressor until it can finally get to the actual light updates coming from the portals that we're creating. But before that happens, we will just crash the server so the updates can never execute.
But so essentially we have to actually do the suppression in the amount of time that we are ahead of the light thread.
Yeah, we are definitely under some time pressure, but if we give ourselves an hour of light suppression, basically, we should be fine. So let's start the update suppressor, but...
Suppressor primed. I'll get on top of the
suppressor is
portal.
primed. Of course I need.
Alright, so I can start removing this portal.
Yeah, you can start removing this obsidian. Okay, disable this guy, disable the auto thing. move the arm.
Oh boy.
Oh god, fucking damn it! Yeah, the server is frozen.
Oh, the
No,
server
I'm
crashed.
disabling the whitelist. I don't fucking care, I'm disabling the whitelist.
And we're back. And I'm back at the bat switch. Well, that was an unfortunate situation, but are you ready for round 2?
Let's just do it.
Alright. Remember the truth.
Okay.
Here comes the block update.
Okay, 3, 2, 1.
Oh, it shouldn't crash again, right?
It shouldn't. Let me log on.
There we go. Yep, we're
Whoa,
on.
whoa, whoa! Go into spectator. Yeah, the Mobfarm works. Yes, we did it.
Wait. Oh, yes! Light level 0, baby.
Okay. You stay in spectator. Just look at this. I'm gonna go into survival for a second. Just look at the speed of this farm. Yes.
I have to get slightly further away from it.
The flying machine.
What? Oh.
The flying machine came back. Did it break the light suppression? Hold on. Let me
No, it
relog.
didn't. It did not break the light suppression. It's not close enough to break the light suppression.
Wow, that was a jump scare. Wow. Oh, yeah, we definitely have mobs. So now player looting attack interval 11. Please.
Oh, I guess there is string
Yes.
Oh!
Hell yeah.
Disable particles, cause holy crap.
Oh, yes.
I can't believe we're not collecting the redstone. What a waste.
Bro, you already bullied me enough to get me back into this project, alright?
I'm also seeing lots of carrots and potatoes that aren't being looted. Naughty.
Okay, listen here, you little shit.
After a few days of running the farm, JKM has his infamous villager chicken jockeys. In fact, we have a buttload of them, and we have a bulk storage chock full of all the materials that we need to run the big boy EOL. We are going to need to transport over 1,500 shulker boxes of each material, thousands of blocks through the nether to the location of the box makers. And luckily for that, we have one of Wavetech's prized pieces of infrastructure, the piston bolt network. Many of our largest farms have these specialized box storages designed by KQG, which include a module at the bottom for loading up chest minecarts. We can easily specify the amount of filled chest minecarts we need, which in this case is 56, by putting that item count in this bottom dropper like so. And what will happen is we'll start filling up a chest minecart, and the moment the chest minecart fills up, it gets dispatched to a nearby piston bolt station like so. And the best part is that we can just keep stacking the chest carts together and transport millions of items all at once. Here we go. The final minecart is in. It's hard to imagine that there's 2.6 million items right here. The next step is to tell the piston bolt station that there's items to transport. Then if I just get into this minecart, the items will come with me. Into the nether hub they go. Here they come. So now the chest minecarts will just wait here for us to tell us which piston bolt we are heading on. The big boy EOL is on the blue piston bolt, which heads up north. So you want to select that and send our chest minecarts over to it. And while the mini EOL was running, JKM and I took the time to actually install a piston bolt station for the big boy EOL. So now that is a destination that we can head to. So if we select that And I believe the minecarts have stopped moving. Yep, they're waiting for us to take the bolt. All we need to do is jump into the minecart. And the minecarts will come with us all the way to the mob farm. Ah, there's the collection system for the shulker farm, the extremely well decorated basalt farm, what remains of an infinity bore for one of the Mega Nether perimeter projects. Ah, and just coming into view now is the gigantic head of Walter White that me and JKM built for some reason, which is actually the location of the Breaking Bad perimeter as well as the current bat switch. There it is, the collection system for the big boy EOL. So we just get plopped off at the station here, and our buttload of minecarts gets dropped into this station right here. What I have done is added a way to take minecarts directly from the piston bolt network and drop them into the item recycling system for the mob farm. Each one of these rails represents a different item type that we will make into a seed stack to obtain more of that item through the seed stacking looting. The item type we have with us currently is bones, so we want to make sure we have the correct rail selected, and then all we need to do is start up the cart separation process. And all of our minecarts will start marching on to this portal where they'll be transported to the overworld side of the mob farm. In the overworld, the minecarts get collected, dropped down on to the corresponding rail, which will simply drop the minecart into a cart yeeting system, which releases the boxes into this item stream where they get loaded directly into the box maker for that particular item type. Oh man, that is a crazy amount of shulker boxes. Our goal here is to make sure that all of these dispensers are filled, and when that is the case, we can go ahead and place down the first shulker box, at which point we start unloading the item, which goes into this dropper, ready to be made into our seed stacks. With the box makers fully stocked, it's time for the stressful part of turning the big complex machines on. You see, even though the box makers have been scaled up to handle the output of the farm, they create a lot of lag. And unfortunately, this is enough to tip the farm over the 50 MSPT limit. To mitigate this issue, we have these buffers which store enough boxes to run the seed stacking for up to 2 hours with the box makers idle. But this also means we can't technically sustain the farm at its max speed below 50 MSPT forever, as eventually the buffers run out and the box makers kick into action. Realistically, however, you wouldn't ever need to run the farm for more than 2 hours, as again, the entire purpose of making farms faster is that you don't need to run them for as long to obtain a certain amount of items. And to be perfectly honest, the 8 million items each of gunpowder, bones and arrows you'll get from the farm in 2 hours is more than enough to justify having the farm. So all that's left to do now is flick this lever to start each box maker. And because the buffers run the farm for 2 hours and the box makers are scaled to sustain the farm, they will also take 2 hours to run until the buffers are full. There we go, we're placing down the minecarts, running them underneath the inverse box, and this is taking out the dummy items from these shulker boxes where we create the seed stacks. Perfect! Alright, I think that's all the confidence I need to start up the other box makers. There we go, that's the bones. And finally, the arrows. Oh yeah. Look at that, the box makers are now kicking into full gear. Here is the item loop for the dummy items, which goes back into these backfilling box makers. Yep, and then these boxes will get dropped back into the system. Yep. Where they create the shulker boxes for the backfilling process. Perfect. Now this is some serious storage tech. So many interconnected systems, from empty shulker boxes being requested by box makers, which create shulker boxes, which are subsequently used to make other shulker boxes filled with our seed stacking items, which were initially requested by our seed stacking buffers. After 2 hours of running the box makers, we are now fully stocked up on the seed stacks needed to run the farm. Which means the next step is to actually do the suppression for the spawning spaces. But before we do that, we need to talk about the future of this mob farm. You see, Wavetech is currently in 1.19.4, a version where the light engine is very slow and inefficient. This makes it very easy to lag the light engine and perform light suppression. As you can see, running this light suppression for a couple of seconds, and we already have over a minute worth of light suppression. But if we try to do the same thing in 1.20, you will notice a slight issue. In 1.20, Minecraft's light engine was upgraded and can now handle most of the light updates we throw at it, making it very difficult to light suppress. Like, just look at that. This light suppressor is running full bore and is not accumulating any suppression time whatsoever. People widely believe that this is simply the end of light suppression, but a better light engine doesn't mean we can no longer light suppress. In fact, with enough light updates, you can absolutely overwhelm the light engine and cause it to lag behind the game thread. It's just a lot more difficult and requires so many light updates that you'll lag the game itself for a long time as well. For example, this device is nothing but lamps filling the entire spawn chunks from build limit to -64, and after being processed for about 2 minutes, it only gives us a couple of seconds of light suppression. Though it's definitely possible to light suppress in 1.20, it's just not very practical. But once you obtain light suppression in 1.20, it will remain stable in any version 1.20 and above. The thing that actually breaks light suppression in 1.20 is when you have a world that was saved in a version before 1.20 with light suppressed chunks. When you first load the world in 1.20, the game will run a data fixer to convert the chunks and recalculate the light levels using the new light engine. But as you can see, I've just loaded this world and it's recalculated all of the light levels, so now the light suppression is officially broken. However, if you can circumvent this data fixer and obtain light suppressed chunks in 1.20, it doesn't matter how many times you load the chunks, the light suppression will be stable. Even loading these chunks in the latest 1.21 snapshots, the light suppression holds stable. So as long as we can get past the data fixer, the end of light mob farm will be fully functional for the foreseeable future. And that's where we get to what I think is one of the most disruptive changes from the 1.21 update cycle. Ominous bottles were added, raid farms were nerfed out of existence, and with them the main source of redstone for technical players. So to compensate, redstone drops from witches were buffed by 1200%. This means with the 1.21 changes to the witches loot table, and our mob farm capable of spawning over 20,000 witches per hour, this farm goes from farming redstone as a funny joke in comparison to stacking raid farms, to being the most powerful source of redstone in 1.21 at about 155,000 redstone per hour. This requires the addition of a dedicated module for redstone, where the C stacks need 12 items each to compensate for the 11 redstone each witch can now drop with looting. It's just insane to think that we originally added redstone alongside potato, carrots and iron as a joke just because we could, and now those systems are being put to work to actually farm redstone as an item that we're going to need in the foreseeable future. So here's the plan. On Wavetech, we're going to finish the farm in 1.19 because we need a reliable amount of suppression time to perform the portal slicing. We are then going to use a mod to circumvent the data fixer when updating to 1.20. A justification for this is that the mob farm project has been ongoing for over 4 years, and we aren't going to roll over and drop dead because of some tiny insignificant feature that breaks all existing light suppression. I'm sure most people appreciate the unintended lighting errors being fixed when updating to 1.20. It's just unfortunate that there is no option in the game to defer the fix for intentional lighting errors. With all of that in mind, I think it's finally time to actually do the suppression. Learning from our lessons with the mini AOL, we'll need to strictly manage access to the server while we are light suppressing. For this, we'll be implementing a tried and true method known as the logout log. This was a procedure first implemented by the Wavetech server in 1.12, where they performed the falling block exploit to obtain illegal items like command blocks. We will be using it to ensure that players who want to help with the mob farm can join whenever they have time without risking crashing the game. So let's send out the call and assemble the Suppression squad. Yeah, that's like 2 hours.
Cubic.
3 hours. Yeah, we don't need that
Cubic,
much.
I feel like you made the suppressor a bit too big.
What do you mean? We can like run it for like a second and then instantly be light suppressing. Like,
Okay, so do we start?
I mean, yeah, essentially we're light suppressing. We made a backup.
That was fast.
Yeah,
we have a
that's the point of having a beefy light suppressor. So I guess we'll just move the suppressor arm. And the entire area is being loaded by the bots in the corners of the perimeter. And
More, right.
and then we need to build the portal, so one block further. There we go.
You wanna do it completely on your own?
No, we can build the portal together. You can start on one end.
Cool. I'm gonna start north. Not gonna lie, this is a lot less stressful when we don't really have to wait for like 5 minutes for the suppressor to charge up. Like,
Yeah.
no emotion. The stress can't really catch up.
We're deferring stress updates. So now we need to start the suppressor. So first I'm going to bud the rail lines. So now I can enable suppressor. There we go, safety's disabled. And I guess we can begin. Light the portal. Break the middle block. So. And then we just go through and slice the portals at these 2 block intervals. After about 6 hours of work, we are only 23% of the way there, but we can already see the results. Sliced portals at Y-63 with perfectly light suppressed levels. Also, the durability of my pickaxe is entirely from mining obsidian. I should probably explain the dragon eggs as well. It turns out they make a light level of 1 below their base. And with gravity block duping, they are much easier to farm than brown mushrooms. Plus, they get run over automatically by the suppressor arm while we are light suppressing, so we don't even need to worry about removing them. We've still got a long way to go, and it's a massive grind. But there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and we're gonna push through until we reach it. There we go. One more line to go. Start the suppressor. Suppressor off. Suppressor arm forwards. And look at that. The suppressor arm is sitting on the glass. My god. Oh my god, this has been an extremely grindy process.
I honestly still cannot believe it that we managed to get all of this done in just 4 days. Like, find me a single sane person who would look at all of those portals and say, yeah, this is a 4-day project.
I mean, that 4 days isn't including setting up the entire looting and storage, speed stacking and all that crap.
Yeah, it doesn't include the 4 years of research and development. So, who's doing the last line of suppression?
Yeah. We'll try to do it together.
This will instantly fail.
What do you? Nah. We're in tune. Watch this.
When And I can break the top portal while you break the bottom portal. Sorry, obsidian. I guess parallelization.
Alright, you get in
So-
position.
Uh,
Ready?
No, we're not doing this. We're not actually doing this. That's
What,
a
you
bad
chicken?
idea. I mean, yeah, because I don't want to lose the progress.
Alright, I'll do this one.
Right. The next portal is mine.
Yep.
Oop. Right, you didn't remove that top portal. Yeah, maybe doing two people doing the same portal isn't the best idea.
You're doing fine. I can't break the obsidian while the suppressor
Oh my god,
is
this.
going.
Uh,
Probably was a bad idea. I'm just so sleep deprived that I don't care.
what time is it right now?
At
Okay,
2 AM.
Okay, I mined this and I placed this. Let's not mine at the same time, holy shit.
Deleting portals with an empty bucket. Does that mean that nether portals are a fluid? You can pick them up with a bucket?
No, you're not picking them up with a bucket, you're destroying them with a bucket.
Well,
Oh, maybe that's why the guy from that TF2 animation, whatever it's called, whoever he's called was so shocked by the sheer existence of a bucket.
This is a bucket.
Dear God.
There's more.
No.
This is a bucket, dear God. But there's more. No.
Then he starts breaking nether portals with. I'll watch as you fail and choke and stuff it
Nuh-uh.
up.
Nah. Oh, hello. I love it when pigmen just randomly spawn in front of you.
Yeah, it happens a lot here. I wonder why.
Okay, your line. Okay, that's my. Oh, I'm gonna do the last one. Oh man.
Watch you stuff it up
Okay.
on like the very last port.
Okay. And that was the last suppression.
Oh my god!
We actually fucking did it. Holy.
look at my suppressions count. It's over 8,000.
Look at mine. Though to be fair, some of those suppressions were from the whiskey farm.
Wait, we have a farm that makes whiskey. Sounds delicious.
Yeah, vodka and beer as well.
Nope,
So
let-
who's pressing the button?
super happy magic crash button.
So
Alright,
do you want to
let's
do the
count it
honors?
down. 3, 2, 1. A little while later, and the spawning spaces are almost ready. At some point during the suppression, we got sick of mining the obsidian above the portals, so after the suppression was done, we then made a bedrock breaker which removed the obsidian. Yeah, it's literally not sending any light updates. This is so surreal just watching the obsidian disappear. As for the obsidian between the portals, we employed the power of friendship. Mad lads like Trolley, Random, Wilton and Ure put in some time to mine obsidian, and we are a needle dick away from being able to run the farm. But in the meantime, there is one issue that needs to be addressed. The wall, or the void perimeter where the mob farm is located, is lacking a certain elegance. But fortunately on the Wavetech server, we have an amazing solution for large scale perimeter decorations. This is our ice farm, one of the most recent projects finished on the Wavetech server. It is also one of the deepest perimeters on the server, being located in a mountain biome. And in order to decorate this gigantic hole, we automated the entire process using Roof Row's perimeter printer. The perimeter printer was previously introduced on my channel as a machine that can automatically print out intricate patterns over the floor of a perimeter. But JKM also went ahead and made a variant of the perimeter printer that can also print patterns on walls. Repeating patterns are pretty cool. However, for the Mobfarm, I wanted to go with something a little more organic. For this, I made my own gradient printer in the same style as Rufo's perimeter printer, which uses a combination of randomizers as well as comparative faders in order to gradually transition from one color to another in a large build. Testing a wall print with this machine on the Wavetech Creative Copy, and we obtain a wall which looks like this. It's a good start, but if you look at it for too long, you start to notice the graininess of the texture, as you can't really get a perfect transition with this sort of blocky randomization pattern. And the gradient will never really look perfect until you get far enough away that each block becomes a single pixel on your screen, which isn't really viable here. But keep in mind that Rufo's perimeter printer combined with the wall placer can also print intricate patterns. So what if we combine the gradient with a tileable pattern? If we head over to another of Wavetech's amazing decorations done by Mr. Max Mondays, the Iron Farm perimeter, we will find a floor pattern that looks like this. This floor was done fully autonomously using the perimeter printer, and if you zoom out, it produces this really nice striated pattern, which gives it this really organic rocky feel, like these are strata formations in the ground. This reminded me of an actual chunk of obsidian I have in my rock collection. And so I nicked this pattern, turned it into a wall, and what we obtain is something looking a lot like my obsidian sample. While the orange striations are truer to the actual sample that I have, the purple colorations should suit the Mobfarm a lot more due to all the portals in the perimeter. And so if we combine the gradient with the striated pattern, what we eventually obtain is this. The gradient is still present, but all of the blockiness of the transition is hidden behind the striated texture of the pattern. And this looks amazing. And the best part is that you can spend an hour or two building the complex machine and simply run it AFK for the 30 hours needed to decorate a massive perimeter. Alright, here comes the moment of truth, starting the big complex machine. Here we go, randomizers are running, and we are loading the first batch of items. Hey, there we go, first layer is loaded. And we need to make sure that we preload the block stream so that it can run consistently. Here we go, the block stream is about to make contact. Oh. Alright, now printer should be able to use on a 6 game tick interval. And we are now printing. Now that the block stream's made contact, let's remove the safety. There we go. Now the printer is free to move and do its own thing. So now all we do is sit back and wait for the machine to do all the work. Alright, we're at the top layer. And we're just about to jam. There we go, we've reached the end of the conveyor. And this should propagate all the way around. And there we have it. An entire 140 block tall wall printed in just over 30 hours. So right now it just looks like there's a giant purple laser going around the perimeter. So the next step is to of course add our rocky texture over the top. And for this, we'll be using Rufo's original pattern printer with a slight twist. Going along with the theme of our natural rocky texture, we'll be using a randomizer to select the layers of the pattern, which produces these nice striations in the pattern. And if you're wondering about the end rods, they're just a temporary block which can be easily removed later. By the way, can we just stop and appreciate how funny this perimeter printer looks? This part of the printer is tiny because there's only 5 item types, however there's 32 layers, meaning the encoder is huge. A skilled technical player can do a lot of cool things when automating the decorative process of large builds. A couple of hours later and the printer is finished. And I have growing concerns about the hypnotic effect of these end rods. But not to worry, they'll be removed eventually. And speaking of removing things, behold! The anti-printer! What better way to remove a gigantic printing machine than with a whole bunch of TNT? And when it comes to removing the end rods, you'll be using this machine, which is simply a flying machine that pushes along a wall of water sources that flush out the end rods. And thinking about creative things we can do as technical players with decorative builds, JKM and I decided to light suppress running these machines to leave behind the light generated by the end rods. So all that was left to do was light suppress and run the sweepers to remove the end rods and the skylight roof of the mob farm. Alright, 3, 2, 1, go.
Alright, I'm going north.
3, 2, 1, go. Oh my god, it's removing the end rod. Let's go. Oh, look at the
60
MSPT.
Oh jeez. Oh, look at the end rods falling into the void. It's not all of them.
I'm gonna see if I
That's a
can
lot.
catch some on my tongue. Hopefully, it stops lagging so much when they reach the ends.
100 MSPT, oh man.
Oh, here we go. Yep, like 3,000 entities.
Yeah, I think this may be related to the end rods.
Alright, there we go. The one I launched is finished.
Second one is done as well.
Oh my god. Just seeing you just like zip around with the elytra. Can you actually imagine doing any of this without the elytra?
Oh, hell no.
Like, a lot of people don't like the elytra for like how maneuverable it makes the player, but also like large scale projects like this would essentially be at it. I'm going to breathe before I die.
Fuck you, you actually made me breathe in real life.
Did I just remind you to breathe, JQ?
Yes, you just reminded me to breathe.
Well, glad I could be of service.
Oh, the water is gone.
Ready?
Yeah, I don't see any water, do you?
Alright, JKM. You ready for the final step under light suppression?
I've been waiting for this exact moment for almost 4 years. Like, the day I joined Wavetech, I've been waiting for this.
We're about to launch the flying machines that will delete the entire skylight roof. And this farmer will effectively be done. Like, fully done.
That's insane. That's actually insane.
Alright, you ready, JKM?
I was born ready.
3, 2, 1. Okay, next flying machine.
I'm already on the 4th.
Oh my god, why are you...
I'm just better, alright?
Oh, here comes the item lag.
Yep. I told you.
Oh
Bro,
my
look at the
God.
sky! There is a thunderstorm right now.
Yeah, and it's raining moss. Let's see if I can catch some on my tongue. Oh yes, I'm catching them.
Why the hell are you catching everything on your tongue?
Oh man. Watch my pretty. Surprisingly not as laggy as the emerald removal.
Yeah, I'm honestly surprised.
Look at me, JKMI, Swift Sneak.
Look at me, I don't. I don't know what's here.
So what we just witnessed was Minecraft's most powerful moss collections.
Yeah, because that's what it's all been about, right? It's not about the mob farm. It's all about the moss and the friends we
Sweet.
made along the way. Not gonna lie, that was a very inefficient moss farm.
Alright,
Right. Should I stop the server?
yes.
Okay, 3, 2, 1.
Farm is definitely here.
Let me in! Let me in! My client doesn't even want to ping to the server. What?
What? How is it Scarlet 15?
Wait, where? Okay, you're just... Fuck you. Wanna see a magic trick?
Magic trick.
Yeah. Hey Shiras, wanna see me fill up the 8 gigabytes of memory with mobs and bats?
Hell yeah. Oh my god.
Holy fuck!
Look at the MSPT. So there aren't any players in the nether dimension, so those mobs weren't despawning at all.
Yeah, but dude, that was a single second and we got to 200 MSPT.
Oh, they all
Look
died
at
of
the
cramming.
Look at the Enderman. So many. I was in survival for literally a single second. That's
so
a second of running the farm.
all of them would have crammed, and this is like the few that survived.
Cubic. Wanna do it again?
Wait, while I'm watching. Oh my god,
never mind. No.
the bat explosion.
Let's do it again. Why not?
There's just bats exploding out of the portal.
Holy shit.
Yeah, this is what happens when you don't have the bat switch running. The mob farm is finally done. If I disable gamma override, we can see the true light suppressed state of the farm. With the end-rod removal suppressed, the purple striations contrast more heavily with the blackstone walls, creating this cool effect. And of course, the spawning spaces are completely dark and spawnable. To celebrate running the farm for the first time in survival, I sent out an announcement to the Wavetech server, and we all got together for the grand opening of Minecraft's most powerful mob farm. Hey gentlemen, it is time to run the mob farm. Wait, what?
Nice.
Yo.
Since when could we do that?
You can.
No, I mean XCOM wants to join.
XCOM can join.
Voice chat.
Yeah, sure.
I'm pretty sure this farm spawns more witches than his freaking than his RNG
No, it
manipulation farm.
No, it doesn't.
No, this doesn't.
XCOM joining the event was actually a pretty huge moment for us. He's one of the true goats of technical Minecraft, and the content creator who first got me invested into this game. His videos taught me the true depth of Minecraft's most fundamental mechanics like mob spawning and entity motion. But unfortunately, however, he couldn't join us on the server because, well, I'll let him explain.
Guys, I have really bad news.
What?
Don't buy Microsoft products.
Oh,
They stole my accounts, both of them.
Wait, did you actually not manage to get any of them back?
Nope.
Holy shit.
Wait, you lost XCOM 6000?
What,
Yeah.
How the hell did it happen?
and XCOM Epoch.
Like a hacker got my account, and then they contact support, and they go like, "Yeah, because the hackers stole your account and put two-factor on it, we can't give your account back. So too bad. Go buy a new account." They said literally, buy a new account.
Oh look guys, he got his account back.
Yeah, but I'm just warning people. Just make sure. Oh shit! Whatever happens, make sure that you don't get your accounts stolen, because it's gonna be gone permanently.
Yeah, that's actually terrifying because like, if like some popular YouTuber got their account stolen, that's basically their username gone.
Yeah,
Whatever
okay,
you
XCOM, let's give you a bit of a rundown. We are about to launch the fastest mob farm ever. It makes 12.5 million items per hour.
Oh no, you're gonna cook the server.
No, it's actually gonna be fine. Well,
Yeah, it's running at 20 TPS.
Are you comfortable enough for me to load the box?
Yeah, I think that'll be awesome.
Trolley that's going to be loading the box.
Trolley is the item collection.
Oh no. So he's picking up the items.
He's picking up the items. That's just there to sort the items and tag them up correctly.
Oh, so it shoots out one item, and then the items go into that one stack.
Yes.
This is like pre-Hopper era, zip crowd item sorting.
Yep, pretty much. Literally, hoppers are just completely unnecessary. That was just the redundant feature.
I'm telling you, you guys have gone back to the prehistoric dinosaur era, like
yeah.
zip
I
crowd
was joking
jail
about
and all
that
those people.
I was joking about that as well. Yeah.
Alright, shit ass, let's turn off the mob switch.
Oh. Okay, the box system is starting up. Oh shit!
Oh shit!
Yo!
Oh my god.
What's
physically accurate simulation of a vacuum field.
Holy shit.
Particles just popping out of it.
Oh my god, I came too close to the killing chamber and I almost crashed.
package of items that are coming in.
Alright, trolley.
Oh wow.
Right click as quickly as possible.
XCOM, every time he's opening a shulker box, he's filling the whole thing.
There we go.
God.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Oh, you putting a shulker box into it?
Yeah,
That's a shulker loader. He's filling the entire
Mob
shulker
Farm.
box.
Mobfarm is player run.
Oh, I see. You're filling the shulker boxes. I see.
There's so many
Oh
of
my god,
us.
he's processed the entire batch.
Yeah.
Wait, you guys need to speed this farm up a little bit because he's faster than the items.
We are literally running under 40 minutes. So you get the correct. That's funny. So you get the pixel perfect alignment going into the portal, and like this portal is right above the portal linking range.
Oh my god, look at the stream of full boxes.
Bro, you can see the
That's
scoreboard
insane.
updating in real time. It's getting like hundreds of thousands of skeletons.
And you-
like,
Got this Swedish box loading technology.
Oh yeah. This is what they do on my IKEA.
We go.
Oh, I think this box is stuffed up. That's the glass block. There it is. Little bugger. Yeah, I'll remove that box from circulation, trolley. Don't worry.
That's
Yeah, that was the
insane.
that was the box with that was the single white stained glass block that screwed it up in copy as well. It must have been like lingering somewhere in the system and you just picked it up and it's just, yeah. Apart from that minor hiccup, the grand opening was a huge success. But now, as we approach the end of this project, I have something to confess. There was a moment during the 1.21 snapshot where Mojang was messing around with portal linking logic and they broke the corner portal. Or more specifically, they changed the behavior of portal linking to send the chunk loading ticket to the entity position rather than the position of the linking portal. This would have completely removed the lazy loading mechanic that this farm relies on, thus rendering this entire project pointless. We made a bug report about the issue, and to our amazement, Mojang actually listened. However, in the meantime, I was having an anxiety attack over this video and all the principles of the mob farm I had already explained and recorded, and so I went and did something completely insane. Freed from the restrictions of the corner portal, I made a mob farm that was even more powerful than the one we just built on Wavetech. Well, sort of. It depends on how you define a mob farm. To transcend the performance of a lazy looting mob farm, you have to rely on a technique which is actually quite adjacent to lazy looting, known as despawn looting. And here is a farm that makes amazing use of this technique. This right here is Garlic Bread's ultimate stacking raid farm, which spawns raid mobs in a precise 4 game tick clock cycle, which means he is able to use a 4 game tick TNT looting system where the TNT is timed to explode in the same instant that the mobs enter the nether dimension. And the thing is, we don't even need lazy chunks here, because the mobs are killed by the TNT before they despawn. Which means not only is despawn looting adjacent to lazy looting, it is actually more lag efficient. However, it has the drawback of requiring a TNT to be ready to explode in the same tick that your mobs enter the nether dimension. This is pretty easy to do when you have a 4 game tick raid farm that spawns mobs at a fixed interval. However, in a general mob farm, our mobs are entering the nether dimension every single tick, which means our TNT looting must also be timed to have a TNT ready to explode every single game tick. This is the 1 game tick despawn looting mob farm, which represents the true upper limit to the performance of an end of light portal spam mob farm. Without the constraints of the corner portal, we have quadrupled the amount of spawning spaces, requiring way more players to provide a larger mob cap for mob spawning, resulting in a total output of 38 million items per hour. But can we really consider this as Minecraft's true most powerful mob farm? Because with no corner portal and thus no lazy looting, we also have no seed stacking and thus no high efficiency item collection. If I go ahead and go /log TPS, you can see this farm is already over the 50 MSPT limit, and we aren't even collecting the items properly. Good hardware and a beefy server might be able to actually sustain this farm. But without lazy looting, there is no seed stacking, and without seed stacking, your collection is going to be limited to an order of a magnitude less items. However, one possibility I do see for the 1 game tick despawn looting mob farm is the sheer amount of witches it spawns, which in 1.21 will give you just about 500,000 redstone per hour, which should be feasible to collect using just your bog standard item filters and simply destroying the items that we can't collect. But fundamentally, I think the bare minimum criteria for the rates of the farm is that you can get the item into shulker boxes, because once items are inside of a shulker box, they become 1,728 times more manageable. Let me know what you guys think. Does the item collection need to match the output of a farm to actually count the rates? Or should the farm design and storage design be separate things? I guess the answer to that question depends on whether you have Minecraft's most powerful sorting system or Minecraft's most powerful mob farm. Oh my goodness, look at the time. 1 hour and 40 minutes for a video. That's a new personal best. Wavetech will soon make the transition to 1.21. With this mob farm done, That leaves Operation Hellstorm to get done in survival, and then we'll be back in the new update. As for me, I have a lot of work ahead of me, with game-breaking changes, game-breaking exploits, and redstone contraptions breaking in future versions. There'll be plenty of things to do in the future update. In the meantime, I am also looking for work. As an actual engineer, not just a block game engineer. You know, solving real-world problems and such. For short term, I have 3 goals. Upgrade the Orbital Strike Cannon, make a proper working tutorial for the Orbital Strike Cannon and the Infinity Ball for the latest version, and provide a follow-up video on the design for Wavetech's main storage, which unfortunately has been subject to some game-breaking changes in 1.21. So thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you next time.